Ramblin Man here. Have y'all ever thought of the origins of curse words? And I'm not. I know where a lot of things came from, like the F word. You know where that came from, and things like that. But I also wanted to know about curse words in them in particular. Okay, like when people cuss and stuff, like how that become a thing where that's bad. Because it's just, I think as a society we go through stages where, if you think about it, back in the day when I was a kid, the reason I bring this up, I was kind of thinking about all the stuff that happened. Let me just tell you what happened a while ago. I was making a joke because I went through like a drive-through, and my daughter wanted a cookie, and I said, well, you get your first cookie for 99 cents because you bought a drink with your meal. I'm like, okay, well, how much is the other one if you get another cookie? $2.49. I was like, good Lord, that's expensive for a dang cookie, right? And so I looked at her and I said, $2.40. Yeah, we'll just take the one cookie. So we get there, and as I'm going through, I said, hey, when we get done here, we're going to the pawn shop. And she's like, oh, okay. I said, yeah, we're going to see if we can get that cookie, if somebody will take that cookie out. It must be made of gold. And she's like, oh my God. Well, here's the thing. That got me thinking. This is how my brain works, guys. I'm telling you. So that got me thinking about, like, when I was a kid, if I said, oh my God, like, my mom was like, you don't use God's name in vain. Now, let me tell y'all something. Using God's name in vain is one of those things that it can be misconstrued. Okay? So if I say, oh my God, that's not using the Lord's name in vain. Although a lot of parents will tell your kids that is. Because why? Because you don't want them using it because it just sounds bad, right? That's the whole point of cuss words. They sound bad. It shows, sometimes it shows a level of maybe you're uneducated, or you don't, for lack of better words, that's what the words you use. I know some people use these words in place of issues they have, speech impediment. Like if you look at Samuel L. Jackson, he's always using the MFer and all kinds of stuff, right? Well, if you read the story on that, he started filling that word in because he used to have a stuttering problem, and he had a hard time delivering lines and other things. Well, he started using that, and it allowed him to, it helped him with his speech. Okay, so and this is not a thing of saying like, hey, cussing is good. This is a thing of me just talking about it. We as a nation, as a culture, depending on where you live, different words mean different things. Like, we used to use words like estúpido, stupid, and then tonto meaning like fool and stuff like that. We were told different words in Spanish when we went down to Mexico. You can't say that word because it comes off harsher or more harsh and like wrong, even though they mean nothing to us, right? So those kind of words are no's, but these are okay, stuff like that. So for our English language, though, here in America, because the English over in Britain versus here, completely different. Now, and it's funny because my wife and I just talked about this today, we talked about people in general. If I'm trying to get a point across, there are people, especially comics and other people that are higher standing, like politicians, people that are seen every day. When they use words, if they can express themselves without dropping an F-bomb or cursing at all, it looks so much better. It looks like they're educated, like they're smarter. Even if they're not that smart, it still shows class. And so I just think about back to the day, like I used to get in trouble when I was a kid for saying crap. I remember when sucks first kind of came out, like, oh, that sucks. People were like, don't say that, because it just sounded wrong. Right now everybody says, oh, that sucks. You have older people, oh, that sucks, and you're like, no, nobody thinks anything of it. And that's just because we become desensitized to things, or they just become like, hey, that's not really a bad word. So at what point are we going to be able to drop the F-bomb and people are like, oh my gosh, that's just so normal? I don't see that happening. But I'm just telling y'all, like, it's crazy what we find acceptable and what we find that really kind of turns our stomach or unacceptable. And I just think it's funny that we decide as a as a nation, as a culture, as a group of people, what we find offensive and what we don't. And you can go to a different country and those things are not offensive, but certain things are that you're like, that's not offensive. It just depends where you're raised and how you're raised. But I will tell you this. I don't cuss that much. And the reason for that is I think it makes you sound like you don't know what you're talking about. It comes off as a filler, like I'm trying to just put stuff in there to make myself look bigger and better than I really am. I think it's comes off as overcompensation. That's just my opinion. Now, like I said, some people love using the words and some people use them as commas. But I don't see where that does anything for us as a people. It should be like any other word. You don't use it every day if it's not something that's, I mean, if you use it if you use, let's say, the F word, if you use the F word like it's a comma, then you're not going to have any kind of, when you actually use it, it doesn't have quite the power that it should have. If I ever drop that word, which doesn't happen very, 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 very seldom, but if I drop that word, it has impact. People are like, what the heck? He must be pissed, or he's trying to get his point across, because that just never, it doesn't come out of my mouth. So just what are your stances on that? What do you think as far as cuss words? You know, does it show where our morals are compared to when we were kids and, you know, saying things like, I mean, back then a cuss word was the S word, or, you know, or saying damn or hell. We couldn't even say damn and hell. Those were cuss words back in the day. Now people like drop those just like they're adjectives, you know, pronouns. I mean, I'm just curious. I just found that very fascinating today and thought about when she says, oh my God. I was like, you know what? That is something that I would have never been allowed to say when I was a kid, but now it's just So I just think times change and people become desensitized to things, and after a while it means nothing to other people. But I still stand by the fact that I think the less cussing the better. I mean, you can say those words, it's your prerogative, it's freedom of speech, but I just think it makes you sound uneducated and, for lack of a better word, like you don't have any kind of vocabulary besides that. So that's my rant for the day. Y'all have a good one. Ramblin' Man out.